This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. As I've covered a few times already on this channel, I wanted to do another video talking about this creepy clown thing that's been going on. I did a short video a few days ago on it. I wanted to cover it a little bit more in depth. I've been researching it. I've been looking into it the last few days. And I said in the last video that I did that I thought that this was definitely something that was planned and organized. And I truly feel that this is a government psyop, that this was created not only to cause fear and to cause panic and to create a gigantic distraction, but again, it diverts attention as these clowns focus on going after children. It diverts attention from the real people who go after children, the elitists in their business suits or their clown costumes. They're the ones who target children and go after children for ritual sacrifice, especially in the month of October as they abduct and kidnap children on Halloween and around this time period for ritual abuse, ritual sacrifice, and pedophilia, and all the disgusting things that they do. Now, I'm not saying that I think that this whole thing is a hoax, that it's completely made up, that there's no clowns running around, that people aren't doing this. I'm not saying that. I can't confirm or deny if that is really happening. But what you've seen is the mainstream media pick up on the fear and pick up on the panic and pump it out. And now there's reports that schools around the country are beginning to close down. So it started out slowly where people were seeing clowns in the woods trying to lure children. Now clowns are coming out, making threats to people. We had the last video I did, I talked about the attack that occurred. A woman was attacked on her porch at 2:30 in the morning. Of course, they never caught the clown. Could that be a fake story that they use to create more fear and panic? Of course it could be. At the time when I read it, I thought that there was some truth behind it. But the more research that I'm doing on this stuff, the more that I'm looking into it, there's very minimal stories of these clowns actually getting caught. And I think what happens when they create fear stories like this, not only does it create panic and all of those things that they want, but it also gets people to participate in it. It's also like, Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and sitting out the national anthem, which I reported on, right? Pushing the race war. Then you see other athletes start taking a knee. At first it was, it's disrespectful to the flag, blah, blah, blah. Then the next thing you know, the next week, more athletes are doing it. Then the next thing you know, high schoolers are doing it. Now all the athletes are wearing, shoes that have caution stripes and all these messages for involving the race war that's going on and protesting police and all this stuff. And it spreads. And I think that that's what they want, is they want to create these stories. And then they want teens and kids to dress up as clowns. Now, I don't think that I do think kids are emulating this. And I do think that there are, hoaxes and there are kids going around that are egging this on because the media has egged it on. But these actual threats that are going into the schools, I don't believe that casual kids are calling up the school saying that they're going to blow up the school, they're going to come in and kill kids, because they could go to jail for a really long time. That's not a prank. And I think people are smart enough not to pull stuff like that this day and age. It's a very sensitive society that we live in. But I do think people are, copying the news now and emulating it. Now, as far as it's spreading, now they're saying it's gotten to Texas and it's coming up to New York City and it's coming up to Massachusetts. So they're creating this fear that it's spreading. But the stories that keep coming out are all pretty much the same. You hear about the hoaxes, you hear about kids in a car, a bunch of clowns in a car together. I talked about early on when this story came out, could this be people who are demonically possessed? Could this be Masons? This could be a gigantic psychological psyop operation that the government has created with the agenda of creating fear and panic, with the agenda of distracting people, with the agenda of people thinking, their kids are in trouble, watch out for clowns, instead of watching out for, the guy in the business suit in October who's likely to abduct the kid and take the kid and perform a ritual on the child. Now, what's interesting is that, as we know, the mainstream media, when they get hold of these stories, if they're a part of the agenda, they push it. So, People magazine, CNN, almost every outlet out there now is talking about this creepy clown thing over and over. It's almost a daily thing, almost like an urban legend, right? And I heard in Texas that this is going on. And I heard in this town that this is going on. Without many people seeing it or actually, seeing clowns in their woods, just hearing, so-and-so saw a clown, almost like, pss, 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 well, whisper, right? Turns into 10 whispers. Then they tell 2 friends. Then they tell 10 friends. And I think that's more of what's going on here. Early on when this story started breaking, I thought that this wasn't a hoax. I thought it was organized. I thought that, there was something behind it, that it was created and organized by a group, the Masons, the government. I didn't believe it was random acts of people just going, let's dress up as clowns and let's go in each state and let's, get arrested for trying to seduce children, because it didn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, what's going on with this fear and panic that's being created, people are scratching their heads and they just kind of think like it's this random thing that's going on in all these states. People are just hearing about this and then they're going to the store and buying clown costumes. And like I said, it's they tell two friends and then they tell two friends and the story can spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, you have the media egging it on. Egging it on as if it's, oh, it's creepy, it's scary. Kids are hearing it, and kids are actually emulating it. But again, these threats that are coming into the school clearly are strategically planned and organized. This is part of the Psyop. We have schools in Ohio that shut down. We have schools in Pennsylvania that are shutting down and closing because threats are coming. Online threats from random accounts are showing up saying that they're going to go into the clowns are going to come to school and stab children and kill children. And this is just a gigantic psychological operation that you're seeing unfold. And it's not a surprise because usually when they do stuff like this, there is predictive programming involved. Of course, we've seen all the movies like It and all the garbage that's come out, with clowns and killer clowns and scary clowns. But recently, the show American Horror Story, which I believe they use that show specifically, it gets a very big audience too, by the way. 6 to 7 million viewers per episode is a lot of viewers. It is a very big show in the United States of America. It's kind of sad that people are watching garbage like this. But in these shows, they're actually showing you what's going on. They had American Horror Story Coven, and they actually show what these witches do and how they act and what, the spells that they are actually doing real spells and real things on these shows. So there's a lot of predictive programming behind American Horror Story, and it's a huge success, and they've made it a huge success. They give it awards, they get Emmys, they get all this stuff. That creates buzz in people's minds, so they want to see it, because obviously there's tons of horror movies and stuff out there. A lot of them flop. Then there's some that get cult followings, but they have made this, the media has pumped this as the show to watch, the scary show to watch every season when it comes out. And we've seen predictive programming before with the witches and the Satanists and even hinting at the Antichrist in their first season. But they had a season 4, I believe, of American Horror Story. It was called Freak Show. And it was featuring a killer clown on that show. And I believe that was part of the conditioning, of the psychological conditioning and the predictive programming that they always use, that they continue to use, because they know how the brain operates. They've studied the human brain. That's how they have all this control, because this is all mind control. They're making people willingly go along with this stuff. They're willingly controlling people's emotions, making them do this or do that, making them like this or like that, making them support things like the transgender agenda and those sorts of things. They're using emotions and they're using psychological operations on everybody. And that's what this appears to be. As this thing spreads around the United States of America, they're popping up in every single state, but there's no people getting arrested, really. Only a few kids have actually gotten arrested. So it's this debate. Is it a hoax? Is it not a hoax? And it's a massive distraction. It's causing tons of fear and tons of panic. And like I said, if I saw a clown out in the woods, I would go deck it. I wouldn't, go hide from the thing. Because even if it was a demon or something that was demon possessed, I wouldn't be afraid of it and say, oh, it has some type of power. I can't go beat it up, or I can't go get it and, get it myself and call the police and say, look, I caught one of these creeps on my property. I laid him out. Here he is now. Arrest him. Let's figure out what's at the bottom of this. Why is there a clown in each state popping up, or a bunch of clowns in each state? Who's organized this thing? Who's behind it? There's nothing like that going on. It's just this fear and panic tactic where parents are now afraid to send their kids to school. And they should be afraid to send them to school in general for what they're learning at schools, how they're being brainwashed and conditioned at schools, how they're being taught or welcoming after-school Satan programs. So this is what's going on. And like I said, now schools are shutting down. The target is now becoming schools. The target is becoming, it's not so much luring them into the woods now, it's threats of death and violence at schools. And I don't think there's any chance that these events are children doing it. I think that there's kids emulating it because they're getting egged on, like I said, but I don't think kids are calling up the schools saying that they're going to kill somebody, and creating these accounts, because there's such huge consequences behind doing stuff like that. I think that they want this to keep going on, that they're doing all of this stuff. They're creating it. Could the entire thing be a hoax? Of course, the entire thing could be a hoax. The stories coming out about, people being attacked by them, could they be, fake stories? Yes, of course they could be. There's always a chance of that, especially when the mainstream media pumps it out day after day, and every day it's just spotting here, spotting there, spotting in Florida, spotting in Texas, spotting in Philadelphia, spotting in New York City. Oh, who's next? Then the next articles that come out on these mainstream sites is Massachusetts is in fear that the clowns are going to spread up to Massachusetts. But no one's getting caught. No one's getting found. I find it hard to believe in a world where you can't hide if you want to. If I wanted to go hide in the woods, Or I wanted to go hide somewhere. You can't go hide. If someone will find you if they were looking for you. If I was like, all right, hide and go seek from the police. Let me go hide somewhere. Give me like 24 hours to hide. You'd think they'd be able to find me? I do. I'm pretty sure they'd be able to find me. We have CSI and all these shows. They show you, how the police detective work that goes on and how they can get a fingerprint off of a piece of dirt and how they can figure all this stuff out, but they can't find, people dressed up as clowns walking around the woods, walking around these towns. Because apparently it's going on in towns and people aren't going up to them and apprehending them. We're not getting any citizen arrests or anything like that. We're just getting people, did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? And that's what a psychological operation is. And after looking at it for a few days and really, studying the stories that have come out, I believe that this whole thing is a psychological operation that the government is behind, that the government has created. It is a distraction from what's going on. It isn't a coincidence that it's October, and this is when the most, kidnappings and abductions occur, and now you have everybody looking this way. You're walking out with your kids somewhere, you're going to be looking for clowns, you're not going to be looking for a guy in a business suit, and I truly believe that is part of this Psyop. And like I said, they've used the predictive programming with American Horror Story and these other films, this big spooky clowns, everybody's afraid of clowns kind of a thing. And I don't know what the end game is for this story. If it's just there to be a distraction, if it's just there, to continue to make people look like fools and to be living in fear and panic of these things. And there could very well be an end game behind it. There could very well be something correlated that's going to occur, or it could just end up going away in the next few weeks. We don't hear about it anymore. We'll see how it plays out. But I wanted to do another video on it because I was really just looking into it. And I know, I did talk about how I thought it was organized. I did in my mind think it could be a psyop, but I didn't want to jump in and say, oh, it's a giant hoax without really doing a lot of research. And you see all the stories that pop up, but you don't see any arrests, really. It's very few. And even the attacks that occur, the woman who was attacked on her porch, they can't find the guy. There's nothing to be found. There's nowhere to be here. There's no one to be there. And then they're attaching clowns to these stories, whether there's murders that occur. Like the one story I reported on, it turned out that originally they reported it that it was a clown involved in the killing. And then it turns out, there was a clown that egged on the killing, but nobody knows who the clown is or where the guy went. So this is a psychological operation. I don't know what the end game is, if it's just fear and panic, but I wanted to talk about it again. I hope some of this information helps you think about this in a different perspective and look at this in a different perspective as we try to figure out, what are they trying to do? What are they trying to get? Are they just messing with everybody? Highly likely that that's just what they're doing, is just messing with everybody. And like I said, getting them to look one way instead of looking in the other direction where they should be looking. Getting them to look for the boogeyman, so to speak, instead of looking at the CEO of PepsiCo or, these corporation leaders and these politicians who are in these satanic circles, who do perform these rituals, who are very sick, sadistic human beings, if you even want to call them that. So that's what I believe this whole thing is. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.